making it because they have to.
And she'd say, no, politics isn't my thing. And then I'd say, hey, Lucy, come and just do a few phone calls. No, politics isn't my thing. And then I'd say, hey, Lucy, why don't you just come and knock a few doors with your sister? And she'd go, no, politics isn't my thing. And then the first debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump happened. And not only did Lucy get involved, but she would knock doors every day for the last week of the election. She would bring her friends out to knock doors the last week of the election and get other high school students out to vote. And we all know that's really, really difficult. So, after the election, I remember Lucy crying on my shoulder in that fateful day in November when she knew that everything that she had fought for was in jeopardy. But she didn't see this as a moment of sadness. She saw this as a moment of action and opportunity. And Lucy, not only did she get involved in the next election, she organized the March for Our Lives here in Des Moines. And this girl who said that politics isn't my thing is now studying political science at the University of Iowa. And so I want to take a lesson from my good friend Lucy. And I want all of you to follow her lead, because right now is a time for action, okay? So I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you to take out your cell phones. I know y'all have them. Everybody wants a selfie with the senator, okay? So take out your cell phones and text Iowa, the word Iowa, to 40203, okay? It's on the signs. You don't have to do it right now. Actually, I would like you to do it right now. But text Iowa to 40203. Then you can sign up to volunteer. You might even get a phone call from me. That'll be fun. We can go get coffee. That'll be great. Anyway, text Iowa to 40203. Okay? And then also, on the way out of here, I want everybody to stop by someone with a clipboard and sign up to volunteer, sign up to get involved, sign up to have us contact you, because we'd love for you to be a part of our team, because we've got the best team in the business, and we've got the best candidate in the business too. So, I talked to you about this girl who said politics isn't my thing and is now a superstar political person, and I don't want to talk about her anymore. I want you to get the opportunity, I want to give you the opportunity to meet her, and I want her to come out here right now. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the best young activists in the state, and my very good friend, Miss Lucy Carlin.
Thanks, Adam, and thank you all for being here today. A special welcome to 92-year-old World War II veteran Jean Cutler. Thank you for your service. I'm so excited to introduce today's panelists. Des Moines School Board member Deanna Langford, City Councilman Josh Mandelbaum, Representative Jennifer Converse, Representative Kristen Sunday, and Senate Democratic Leader Janet Peterson. I'm so excited to welcome a candidate who not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. Senator Booker is the only candidate who goes home to a low-income inner-city community. He's a champion for women's rights, workers' rights, environmental justice, and criminal justice. Last week, he released his campaign launch video. I was so inspired by it. Let's watch it now.
In America, we have a common pain, but what we're lacking is a sense of common purpose.
What's up? Amen.
I grew up knowing that the only way we can make change is when people come together. When I was a baby, my parents tried to move us into a neighborhood with great public schools, but realtors wouldn't sell us a home because of the color of our skin. A group of white lawyers who had watched the courage of civil rights activists were inspired to help black families in their own community, including mine. And they changed the course of my entire life. Because in America, courage is contagious. My dad told me, boy, never forget where you came from or how many people had to sacrifice to get you where you are. So over 20 years ago, I moved into the Central Ward of Newark to fight slumlords and help families stay in their homes. I still live there today, and I'm the only senator who goes home to a low-income inner-city community, the first community that took a chance on me. We are better when we help each other. The history of our nation is defined by collective action, by interwoven destinies of slaves and abolitionists, of those born here and those who chose America as home, those who took up arms to defend our country, and those who linked arms to challenge and change it. I believe that we can build a country where no one is forgotten, no one is left behind, where parents can put food on the table, where there are good-paying jobs with good benefits in every neighborhood, where our criminal justice system keeps us safe instead of shuffling more children into cages and coffins, where we see the faces of our leaders on television and feel pride, not shame. It is not a matter of can we. It's a matter of do we have the collective will, the American will. I believe we do. Together, we will channel our common pain back into our common purpose. Together, America, we will rise. I'm Cory Booker, and I'm running for President of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Senator Cory Booker.
My voice is shot. My spirit is great.
All right, everybody, this is much better. So I cannot tell you what it means to be number one with this incredible panel up here. A lot of my friends, people I've gotten to know, especially over the last campaign cycle, when I and my team were all in to help Iowa in the past elections that we had. But I want to start off by saying about 10 minutes or so of why this is such a powerful personal moment for me, and why I'm very moved by seeing such a big crowd here. And I already went down and talked to the overflow room. Because as much as my story has all been about New Jersey, the reality is my roots are right here in Des Moines. And so you know, my grandmother was born and raised in this city. And some of my family members are over here right now. Give it up. But yet my family actually started in a mining town. My grandmother's grandmother moved from Alabama to Buxton, Iowa. Now, some of you all know Buxton was this incredible town ahead of its time. Buxton was a place where descendants of slaves and European immigrants came together and went down into the mines, worked side by side. It was ahead of where this country was. They had common quilting bees, praying together. It was a nation that showed who we could be when we put our spirit and our energy into the earth. We could fuel an entire region with the coal that they got, but more importantly, this town was a gateway for so many of us that are in Iowa or around the nation now into the working class. When my grandma was growing up here, she had an incredible community of support. Her parents were domestics. My grandmother's father was a janitor, and her mother was a domestic cleaning buildings and homes. And yet that work had dignity. It was work that helped get my grandmother off to college. And when they didn't quite have enough money, it was a church right here in this city that took a collection to make sure she had more resources to enroll in college. This is our story, and it is more than our story. It is the American story. And it has much to do with why I'm running for president. Look, I hope we have a chance, and I got a great group behind me to talk a lot about the issues: the savagely broken healthcare system, the starving of public education, killer debt, people working now full-time jobs and not being able to raise their families. But undergirding all of this is an American spirit that we must call to again. It's the spirit of not just my personal story, but our story. Let me tell you a story from my family that everybody here can relate to, especially Iowans. This doesn't have to do with this state. It has to do with my dad and my mom when they met in Washington, D.C. My dad had the luck and fortune of meeting my mother, and my mom had the grace and mercy to marry my dad. And they were two young people, had graduated from historically black colleges and universities, came to D.C. at a time that my parents said they encountered such commitment, such conviction around issues of justice. People fighting to get qualified African Americans their first jobs with companies that had never hired them before. My dad was IBM's first black salesman hired in the entire Virginia area. And when you let people who are excluded have a seat at the table, women, minorities, LGBTQ, you give them a chance to compete, everybody does better. My dad made their top 5% of their global salesmen, gets a promotion up to Madison Avenue, and then they start looking for homes in New Jersey, and they find that in the northern suburbs, every time they would go look at a house in a white neighborhood, this is 1969, they would be met by folks that would say, oh, I'm sorry, this house has already been sold. Real estate agents would tell them, oh, no, this house was pulled off the market recently. Let me show you another one. And they would take them out of the community. And so what did my parents encounter again? It was this incredible grace, this incredible commitment. Groups of people that look a lot like this room, small groups who used to meet in living rooms, and they decided that they were going to break this housing discrimination. And these activists joined with these incredibly committed lawyers. And so they set up a sting operation. My parents would go look at a home, and they would be told it was sold. They would leave, and a white couple would come behind them, pretending like they were home buying too, find out that the house was still for sale. And then this white couple, on one particular day, on the house I would grow up in, my parents were told it was sold. The white couple comes in, finds out it's still for sale, and they put a bid on the house. The bid was accepted. They drew up papers. They set up a closing. And on the day of the closing, the white couple didn't show up. My father did, and a volunteer lawyer. Now, they came into the office, and I always imagine that this lawyer must have practiced a great speech for hours that night before, because he walked in, my father said, with a determination. He walked over to the real estate agent and said, you're a violation of New Jersey fair housing law, of American law, and American moral law. But he didn't even get a chance to really get into the speech, because the real estate agent stands up and punches my dad's lawyer in the face. And then he sigs a dog on my dad. And every time my dad would tell this story as I was growing up, the dog would get bigger. I moved into that house. My father used to call us the 4 raisins and a tub of sweet vanilla ice cream. And just imagine me, by the time I'm 18 years old, I'm a president of my class in high school. I'm a high school All-American football player with a scholarship off to Stanford. Yes, I got into Stanford because of a 4.0, 1,600, 4.0 yards per carry, 1,600 receiving yards. Of our society. Go home tonight and tell somebody that, oh, I tolerate you. Our greatest leaders call us to be a more beloved community. And so I want you all to know that this is what I'm fighting for. It's worse than people are willing to admit. From farmers to factory workers to waitresses in my city, there are people that are being hurt by the way we're conducting business. We have places in this country where it's easier to find unleaded gasoline than unleaded water. We have a nation with a criminal justice system, as Brian Stevenson says, it treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. We have a nation. Clothing sometimes, sanitary products. I hear it all from my neighbors who are teachers. But yet they get treated worse by our tax code than a 25-year-old stockbroker who pays less than a percentage of their income to taxes than that teacher does. That's wrong. But I only know one way to fight. It's the way we fought against slumlords in Newark, by organizing people, bringing people together. It's the way we took a city on the brink and turned it around into its biggest economic development boom in 60 years. More jobs, safer communities, improved public schools. The way we did that is by bringing people together, not driving them apart. Even the cynicism in Washington, I got down to DC and people told me, oh, you can't get big things done, you can't do stuff. I got on the floor of the Senate there to try to drive criminal justice reform. People said, oh, no way you can get this done. Oh, people never vote on it. The specter of that kind of racist, really Horton ads, it's gonna be hard to get anybody to vote on things that releases people from prison. And I said, no, I'm gonna do it. I get down there, I'm sitting at the presiding over the Senate, as junior senators often do, and there's a guy on the floor who's a chairman of the Judiciary Committee speaking out against my ideas. You all might know him. His name's Chuck Grassley. No, don't boo him. I didn't boo him. I didn't boo him. I may be able to write a dissertation on my disagreements with him. But you got to get things done in America. My city didn't care. My state didn't care how much I disliked senators who disagree with me. They sent me down there to get things done. And so I went to his office. I started talking to him on the floor. I started asserting our common values, because as much as people want to divide us, everybody in this country knows we shouldn't live in a nation where people put aside life-saving prescription drugs because they can't afford them. We live in a nation where everybody knows somebody that works a full-time job should be able to raise a family. We live in a nation where we share more common values we care to admit, and I went to work for years. Eventually, Chuck Grassley started agreeing with me. We wrote a bill together. We got it out of committee. The Congress ended. We went back to work in this Congress, and now the law of the land. We passed the largest criminal justice reform bill. We got it done. And I was able to force a lot of things in that legislation, including a ban on solitary confinement for children in this country. And I'll tell you, I reject cynicism. I know the power that we have as a people when we start working together, standing together, and fighting together. I'll end with this point. I'm a senator now, and I decided to write a book, but if you have a dad like mine, you gotta fact check stuff. I mean, was it a pack of wolves or not? So I go back to find the people from our nation who helped my family get into a town. I go back to find the head of the Fair Housing Council, and she's easy to find because she's still head of the Fair Housing Council now. This woman from the 60s is now 92 years old. And now she doesn't represent black families moving into communities. She represents same-sex couples, Muslim families, Americans with disabilities. Why? Because your justice is my justice. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We're all in this together. I have a great conversation with her. I said, I got to meet these lawyers. And she sent me to the lawyer that organized the sting operation, and I find him, I call him up. He's now 84 years old. I say, hello, I'm Cory. I know who you are. Okay, sir. We talked for a long time. I said, you know what you did for my family? I know what I did for your family. He fills in all the facts, ladies and gentlemen. It was not a pack of wolves, it was a dog. But at the end, I had to know why. Why would this white guy in the 1960s who had just started a business, who was busy, who was tired, who had a family to raise, why would he take so much time to help black families move into his neighborhood at a time that there was people whipping up fear, oh, white flight, lower real estate prices? Why would he stand up against all of that to help black people come into his neighborhood? And so I asked him that question. And when he told me the answer, it blew me away, because it was a testimony to our interdependence. It was a testimony to the power of our ideals. He says to me, I was sitting at home one night watching TV, and I was relaxing. It was after a long week, and I'm watching TV, and we all do this. But he was watching back in the day, we had 3 channels. And at night, you know, around 11 o'clock, I think TV went off. Somebody here remembers what I'm talking about. Thank you very much. They play the national anthem and no more TV. I think that's why we had higher birth rates back then. Anyway, he's watching TV. And the movie, I actually looked it up. The movie he was watching was judgment at Nuremberg. And then they break away. It's breaking news. Now we have breaking news all the time. Every 5 seconds, breaking news. Melania has a jacket. But back then, they rarely did it. But this time, they broke away to go to something that was happening in Alabama on a bridge. You see these marchers, 600 of them, started in Selma, and they were trying to march to Montgomery, and they got stopped on a bridge called the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And they get stopped there by Alabama state troopers who are refusing to let them go on to their destination. And they decided to turn around. But first they were going to pray. Now, I know this because I talked to one of those marchers. Then he was a young 20-something-year-old young man. Now he's a congressman. His name is John Lewis. And John tells me that they were about to kneel and pray and then turn around and leave. But before they can get on their knees and pray, they get gassed. Tear gas shot at them. And then the Alabama state troopers start charging in with billy clubs, viciously beating them. John Lewis says to me with this humility, he goes, "Cory, I shed a little bit of blood on that bridge that day." I'm like, "No, Congressman, you had your head cracked open. You were knocked unconscious. You bled profusely. You bled that bridge red with your own blood." Now here is this man in New Jersey, 1,000 miles away, watching TV. And he doesn't do what I do sometimes. I call it the state of sedentary agitation. When you know, some nights I'm watching Rachel. She's getting me all upset about something. And I'm like, somebody should do something about that. And then I think to myself, wait a minute, man, you're a United States Senator. No. This young white man with a family, with a business, he doesn't just sit there. He realizes that in life, you can't let your inability to do everything to undermine your determination to do something. He said, I'm not a governor, I'm not a senator, but I believe in this world, you just got to do the best you can with what you have where you are. And he gets up and he starts calling around. Does anybody need a little bit of legal help? And he finds this woman named Miss Lee Porter, young woman, and she says to him, "Oh, hallelujah, thank you. I desperately need lawyers." The two of them, this was 1965, go to work. He starts organizing other lawyers to do the same thing. And then 4 years later, he gets this case file with these names on it: Cory and Carolyn Booker, my parents. And then he goes on to help us move into the home that I grew up in with great public schools, great community that sent me off to college. Now think about this for a second. What is that chain reaction? What is that interdependency? What is that interconnection that we all have? That when things are dark and bad, do we fight fire with fire? Heck, I ran a fire department when I was mayor. That's not a very good strategy when there's a fire. These are people that matched darkness with their light. They matched hate with their love. And standing on that bridge with their patriotism, with their love of country, with their love of countrymen and women, they failed to get to their destination on that day. But on that moment, just by standing up and doing what's right, their love of country instantaneously jumped up from Alabama and jumped 1,000 miles and touched the heart of one man in New Jersey on a couch, who would then get up and go to work a little bit every single day, and he would change the destiny of a generation yet unborn. I would not be here right now if it wasn't for that chain reaction of patriotic love, of people committed to our ideals, committed to our principles, committed to action. And so I'll tell you right now, we are in a dark place in America. People are questioning. People are worried. People are understandably afraid. But the question is, us as Americans, is not what happens to us, it's how we respond. And in this election, yes, it is about an election, it is about an office, but it is about so much more than that. In this election, we can choose right now, not just to seek to win an election, triangulation and politics and polls. We can choose to go higher. We can choose to run elections like we want to govern. We can choose to treat each other like we want this country to be treated. We can choose to move forward, to deal with injustice, inequity, and unfairness with a united voice, a chorus of conviction. I know if we do that, then this nation, with all the challenges and all the hardships, as much as we've been pulled down low by some folk, I know that we as a country will rise. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So, I am very blessed to have a panel up here with me. I don't know if they heard that my voice was failing, so they were going to say, let's do a chorus, Cory. But I would love for you guys to go through, and maybe, Janice, starting with you, we can introduce yourself and just talk about, you all have been involved in elections from the school board to the state senate. Maybe you can talk about things that you've learned that no matter how many challenges, and I know you just faced an uphill battle, and we talked a lot during this process. I have rarely met somebody that could match her level of toughness and determination. Maybe we can talk a little bit about, in tough times, tough elections, uphill battles, what are some of the very important lessons that you all have learned to help us through these difficult times? Go ahead.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for being in Iowa. Is this on? Thanks for being in Iowa. I am serving my 19th year in the state legislature. And I am fortunate to represent the neighborhood where I grew up. I live a quarter of a mile from the house that I grew up in, and I have had the honor of serving in both the majority and the minority, and I can tell you it's much more fun to serve in the majority than the minority, as you know.
Yes.
The past couple of years have been tough, but I think for me, the thing I've learned is it shows what you're made of. And the one thing that I think has been so exciting for us is the amount of people who've become civically engaged and gotten involved in the political process. I had one subcommittee that I went to shortly after the election and shortly after the Women's March, and we had over 500 people come to a subcommittee meeting filling the State House from the ceiling of the staircase all the way down to the basement. So, and I'm excited that we have a lot more female colleagues in the state legislature. We have a historic number of women representing Polk County, and the Iowa House of Representatives is for the first time majority, the Democratic Party is majority women.
All right. Thank you. You want to pass the mic?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Sunday. Thank you. I represent House District 42, which is sort of the south part of West Des Moines in Polk County, as well as the community of Cumming in Warren County. I just beat a 10-year incumbent who spent an awful lot of money against me. And it was a hard-fought race, but one thing that I think is important is that when I was knocking on doors, and we started early because I wanted to talk to as many people as I could get to, but when we were knocking on doors, you know, there were a lot of people over the summer not ready to think about the election yet, and I was talking to a lot of independents and even some Republicans, couldn't understand really why I was at their door already. And you know, I'm talking about education, I'm talking about healthcare. Those are things that they care about, but their faces really kind of lit up, and they started nodding when I started talking about the tone of politics today. And I really think that had a lot to do with why I won. People are fed up with ugliness. They're ready for candidates, legislators, our leaders to work together to understand that, you know, half of our friends, family, colleagues, neighbors might not have the same opinions as us, but we can find common ground if we work hard enough at it. And we need to elect leaders that are willing to do that. So I appreciate your message. I'm the one married to a Republican. We figure it out at our house. There's no reason we can't figure it out, you know, at the Iowa Capitol, at the Capitol in Washington, D.C.
Amen.
And
Amen.
so I think that's what we need to keep focusing on.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Confirst. I'm a state representative from House District 43. So I was a loser. I lost the first time I ran and wasn't going to run again. And then I woke up and watched what was happening at the Capitol, and I said, oh, I'm going to run again. And that was scary and hard. And I will tell you the difference between running before 2016 and running after 2016 is the level of engagement. And it's the fact that people are awake now. And there is no more taking things for granted. There is no more sitting back and letting someone else do it. It is our turn, and we are awake. And that is what has been so exciting for me. So I'm honored to be here. So.
Right.
Councilman.
I'm Josh Mandelbaum. I'm a Des Moines City Council member. And you know, one of the lessons, and part of it, I got the opportunity to learn this. I used to work for Governor Vilsack and Lieutenant Governor Peterson earlier in my career. And one of the things that I learned from them is that if you take the opportunity that you have in service, every day that you go to work, you have an opportunity to make people's lives a little bit better. But you can't do that without listening to the people that you serve. And that's true whether you're on the school board or the city council, at the state legislature, all the way up to the federal level. To represent the people that you're working for, you have to listen to them and bring their voice forward. And that's one of the most important lessons that I've learned and that I try and take with me every single day.
All right.
My name is Deanna Langford, and I have the pleasure of serving on the Des Moines Public School Board. I learned so many lessons when I ran. So I just started my second term. I'm in year 3, so I ran in 2015. I was 22 years old. I was a year out of college. I knew absolutely nothing about what it would take to run a campaign. And so I think 2 of the most prominent lessons that I learned in that space was, 1, nobody does it alone. I had a phenomenal team of people around me who helped me win that election. But the second piece is I want to speak to the women in this space, particularly the young women. I ran that race. I remember I had 2 men that I ran against, both great candidates. But I remember always thinking about, my initial thoughts were all the reasons why I wasn't qualified, all the reasons why I didn't have what it takes to do that race. And I think we do that as women oftentimes. We immediately tell ourselves why we can't do something or why we're not capable. And so I think in that space those are all lies. Representation matters, and what you have to give to a space is important. And so what I had to give to that space was important, and that's probably one of the things that I learned in that.
That's awesome. Awesome. So I want to see if you guys have some questions that are on your mind, if you want to throw any questions out. I can keep asking you guys questions, Jen.
Okay. Tell us what you think about the President's State of the Union, if there's anything in there that you thought might actually happen. And
look, I don't think I need to tell you this, but media knows this, everybody knows this. We have a president that has a real problem, and a problem relationship with the truth. And, the teleprompter Trump can't square with the Twitter Trump. And there was a lot of things in there that I thought were mean-spirited, exaggerations, the way he talks about immigration, but demeaning the dignity of others, the way he talked about in one hand trying to say, I want to bring everybody together, but then basically calling all the Congress people sitting there socialists. And so when I hear speeches like that, I definitely listen for things that I agree with, and I was applauding on some things, standing up, because I also know that I serve with a Congress that is still a co-equal branch of government. And let me give you just one example. We have a real big problem. One of the pain points for Americans, I don't care what your party is, I don't care what your background is, you can't go to one state in this nation without hearing real pain that people feel about what's happening with prescription drugs in this country. You have EpiPens that have seen like 300% increases, opioid drugs where they've gouged people, profiteering off of other people's pains. Even a cancer drug that had been out for decades was recently jacked up in price dramatically. And so this is the second inaugural address that he's said something about it. He actually mentioned, State of the Union address. Last year he had the same line in his speech, speaking to people's pain, but he did nothing. And so as we're leaving that, I turned to one of my Republican colleagues and said, hey, we all stood up for that. He talked about it last year. We're an equal branch of government. We could do things now. And let me give you a couple examples, because I joined with some senators and have introduced a number of bills. I've co-authored some. But this is a problem that is not a partisan problem. If you talk to Republicans, talk to Democrats, they'll agree with some of the things I'm about to say. Well, for one, we should say that we should use our collective bargaining power because we have government through Medicare buys a lot of prescription drugs, but we don't use that power to negotiate down costs. But let me give you another example. I have legislation to address that, but let me give you a better example even. There is, and I know this because my senior senator who just got reelected in New Jersey, he actually ran against a pharma executive. And this guy got called out for the truth, is that his company had a drug that was out there, and then the same drug being sold in a different country, this one happened to be Russia, which kind of really got my ire, was for dramatically lower costs. And so we decided, some of us senators, to co-sponsor a bill that should be bipartisan. It isn't yet. But to say simply, if you raise prices higher in this country than you're doing in the average of other countries, you should have a punishment for that. You should lose your patent and your exclusivity and allow generics to come in and charge a fair price for that drug. So you could say that idea to anybody on any side, and that just sounds fair, and it comports with our values. And so I don't trust this president to do those kind of things, but I know that if we campaign on our common values and our common ideals, we can get those kind of things done that will drive down prescription drug costs and turn his words, his fake words, into a new, real reality for all of us. Yes.
So it's no secret.
So this is our first time meeting, which is really exciting to me.
You all, I had a huge fangirl moment backstage. I'm still getting over the fact that I'm looking at his face, so just work with me, okay? But on a serious note, under this administration, we've seen an outright attack on the LGBTQ community, and we've seen this administration effectively look to dismantle policies that protect that community. And so I'm wondering, people are rightfully afraid. As a candidate for the presidency, how can you speak to people's fears?
Okay, so that's a great question, because in my community in New Jersey, there are groups that feel afraid. And they're feeling afraid not because of something imagined, because we see attacks on minority groups going up in this country, from attacking a synagogue in Pittsburgh, from attacking a church in South Carolina, to even in New Jersey subways, people who are sick with turbans on are being yelled at and heckled. And for people who don't think words matter, this is a president who is giving license to those who hate. They're actually using his words in white supremacist websites. And for, again, those people who don't think there's reasons to be afraid, since 9/11, we've had about 80 or so terrorist attacks in our country. The majority of them have been from right-wing extremist groups. The majority of those have been white supremacist groups. And so we live in a time where people are right to be afraid. But remember, this fear isn't new with Donald Trump. My parents, I still remember, when you're talking to your parents and you try to joke a little bit and then you see the look in their eyes and they are serious. When my parents first started trying to talk to me when I got my driver's license about what to do when I encounter a police officer, because they were afraid that their son might not come home, because their 6'3", very large African-American male son might be perceived as a threat. The fears of the LGBTQ community in a nation before Donald Trump, the attacks on trans African-American women, there were dozens of trans people killed a couple of years ago just because they were transgender. Many people remember the name Matthew Shepard. We had a woman in Newark killed. Some guy hit on her at one of our intersections. She yelled out that she was gay, and he got out of the car and stabbed her to death. So you ask this question that hurts me, because how do you speak to some people's fears? And it's hard because we are in a nation right now where we have a president that is using language that you know, what does it mean when you call a country an S-hole country? What does that mean to Sudanese immigrants here in this city? And so I don't know but my history and but our history. And I think the only way you can help to address fears is not just with words, but by our actions. That we are people that when we see other people attacked, if you see a woman being demeaned and degraded and you're a fella, and if you sit there and do nothing, you are complicit in what is going on. It is not enough in life to say, I'm not a racist. If racism exists, you need to be anti-racist. You need to be actively working against that. It's not enough to say, I'm not an anti-Semite. You need to be actively working against anti-Semitism. Because when the dignity is denied to one American, it's an assault on the dignity of all Americans. And so the only way I know how to do this is to continue my activism every single day. And it doesn't have to be large actions all the time. Well, I'm a senator, so I speak to these issues all the time. I introduce legislation to try to protect people. The fact that Betsy DeVos and the Justice Department are rolling back protections for LGBTQ youth is outrageous and unacceptable. I want to fight that. But I want to work, but we need to work in our own communities right now. We need to work right now in our own communities to strengthen the bonds between us, to reach out to people who pray differently than us, that look differently than us, find out how you can be a better ally, find out how in a cause of justice you can be a better accomplice. And then the last thing I'll say is one of the reasons why I am running for president is an answer to this question. I cannot sit still and watch someone preach bigotry and hate, divisiveness, who literally started their campaign for president trying to blame Mexicans and Muslims and others for our problems. And I am fighting to create an America where we have a beloved community.
Thank you. So one of the things...
I just want to say, I started my career as a city councilman. I have great respect for city council people. And I know one of the great challenges and joys of being a city council person is that when you go to the supermarket, you really have to allocate like an hour more than usual. You may just be going to pick up a carton of milk, but you got to get ready. You got to make sure you have a pen with you to write things down when people stop you. So I know your wife and kids are backstage, but when you don't come home on time, I hope they give you the sympathy and deference that you deserve for your position.
Working on that.
Okay.
I'm never getting home on time, but one of the things, and this relates to what you said, you know, one of the challenges that we have as a community, and it's not just Des Moines, it's our entire metro, is figuring out how to provide more affordable housing. And that's a critical issue, and it's an issue where we need partners, including at the federal level. And so I was hoping that you'd talk about what we can do to work on solving our affordable housing challenges.
So I had the privilege of being invited to your home, and this was one of the issues that we actually talked about a little bit more. It's an issue sort of in my bailiwick. I started in a legal clinic at Yale dealing with these issues. I moved to Newark to take on slumlords and try to preserve housing. As a guy who's had their family denied housing, is an issue that I take very seriously. And we've gotten to a point in America where you see middle-class families spending 30, 40, 50% of their income just trying to provide housing for their families. And we're finding lots of people who are doing great jobs who can't even afford to live in the communities that they're working. What a shameful thing it is for us as a nation to have teachers who teach in communities who aren't getting enough money, paid enough money to often live in those communities. And so I think a lot about housing, and I don't want to get technical with folks because there are a lot of streams of resources for localities that you and I know about, from low-income housing tax credits and more. But I want to make an argument for just overall federal funding for affordable housing. And that's something that can be controversial, but I think the federal government can do a lot in this space. And the one area of housing I want to talk about, because when we talk about housing, we often leave people out of the equation. And I can tell you, I can give, we were able to double the production of affordable housing and workforce housing. But there's one housing that was always a struggle for me, and that is supportive housing for Americans with special needs. And one of the things we do, and one of the things I want to let you all know about is we've got to get, especially those of us in this room that say we're progressives, immediately people think you're fiscally irresponsible. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, progressives are the most fiscally responsible folks, because the issues we fight for, and I'm going to give you data. When I was mayor, I used to always say, "In God we trust." Everybody else give me data. I'm going to give you the numbers in a second, but doing the morally right thing to do on housing, especially special needs housing, is also for a city the fiscally responsible thing to do as well. And our federal government, who should be looking to invest in people, we used to be a nation that did that, invested in infrastructure, grows your economy, $1 invested, more than $2 return. Invested in education. In a global knowledge-based society, you invest in education, you invest in the success of all. $1 invested in education in prisons lowers taxpayer expenses $4. We used to invest in research and development. Now the NIH and other organizations that do critical research are starving for dollars, but $1 invested there produces multiples. But housing issues, why should localities be struggling so much to do what's best for their company? Seattle, Washington did a study for mentally ill Americans with mental illness, who get stigma and shame cast upon them. Homeless, mentally ill folks, they decided to do a simple study of what it costs for them to live on the streets homeless versus supportive housing. Supportive housing is very expensive for those of you who don't know housing. But they did the study. They took the 23 people from the streets, calculated their total costs for the year before they were put in supportive housing, and then the year after. And just net, they compared them, and they found out that they saved taxpayers $1 million for just 23 people for that year just by having them. Why? Where do mentally ill Americans often end up if they're left on the streets? Hospital emergency rooms, I heard somebody yell. Absolutely, tremendously expensive. Somebody else over here said jails. Absolutely. We are a country that sends, you want to know our character of our country? Look at our jails and prisons. Other countries, they imprison the media. Don't worry back there. We don't do that in America, even though they call you the enemy. Other countries, they lock up political prisoners. Don't worry, even though they say lock her up. We haven't gotten there. We're never going to get there. But we imprison the vulnerable, the mentally ill, the addicted, the poor, and minorities. And that's so expensive, more expensive than treatment or expensive than housing. And so this is a crisis that I will have a lot of depth on. And we've talked about a lot of things, from dealing with exclusionary zoning that often undermines the ability for some communities to take fair shares of affordable housing. This is a lot of ways we can use the tax code to incentivize investment. I'm very proud that one of the most significant pieces of legislation I got done, I don't think there's one here in Des Moines, but there is in Iowa, is opportunity zones, which allow tremendous tax incentives to invest in the lowest income parts of America. It will be, mark my words, this is not being braggadocious, but the most significant economic development bill for low-income areas in America in the last generation because of the way we structure the tax code. There's a lot of things we can do. But my appeal is going to be for this nation to remember that we should always measure ourselves by the most vulnerable communities. And what we're doing to those populations I just discussed is not only morally objectionable, it is actually costing our society more. It's costing us our moral standing as well as our taxpayer dollars.
We are really fortunate in Iowa to have the opportunity to have so many presidential candidates come and spend time with us, and you know, people love having a chance to get up close and personal and meet you. There are a lot of candidates so far this year, some of them your colleagues in the Senate. So what went into your decision to decide to run, and then how do you set yourself apart when it's such a crowded field?
Haircut, I think maybe might be one. I have friends in this race, people I've stood side by side with in the saddle. I was a mayor for a long period of time. There are some former mayors, from the mayor of South Bend to the former mayor of San Antonio. There are a lot of good Democrats, and God bless that we have lots of choices. So the first thing I'll say, before we go anywhere, something we should all agree on now is that whoever ends up being the nominee, we all support that nominee. And that's going to be my pledge. But I really appreciate you asking me the question about what distinguishes me in this race. And so the first thing is, as a lot of my colleagues have different lines of experience, I have a very different line of experience. In fact, the Wall Street Journal said there's only 21 Americans that have ever done sort of the career path I've done, ever gone from being a big city mayor to going to be a United States senator. And I was a mayor during a very difficult time in America. I was running a city during a recession. When the country has a recession, inner cities have depression-like circumstances. And I had to turn that city around at a time that people were giving up on Newark and said that what we couldn't do. And so one of the things that we distinguished ourselves is we took on the most difficult problems. Our school system had dramatically failing schools, and now we are the #1 city in America for beat the odds schools, high poverty, high performance. Our city had a tremendous problem that we were losing businesses were closing, and I had to think of strategies and work with other people to get investment to come back to our city, and to do it in a way that didn't gentrify our city and move out the people that live there. And so we thought of a lot of creative strategies. I went all around the country trying to work with folks to come to the city of Newark and build supermarkets and food deserts. We hadn't had a new hotel built in our city in 40 years, and we got it done. But we got it done on our terms. When developers came, we got unions to come to the table, developers to come to the table, people with the resources to invest in those, and we sat everybody around and basically discussed the rules. If you're gonna build and construct here, you're gonna use local residents who are often cut out. That means people with criminal convictions. That means giving people shots that don't often get them. I want apprenticeship programs for our kids to make sure that our young people are getting pathways to careers. Long story short, by the time I was leaving Newark to go to be a United States Senator, we were only about 6% of the state's population, but 1 out of every 3 permits being taken out in the entire state of New Jersey for residential construction and commercial construction were going on in the state of New Jersey. So I could go on, but I want people to examine the track record of taking on the toughest problems in our country and actually showing that they can be solved. And even in the United States Senate, from the bills I've already mentioned, that are going to drive billions of dollars into low-income communities in this country of new development, new investment, to passing comprehensive criminal justice reform. I am somebody that's going to distinguish myself by having a record of taking on tough problems and getting things done. And the last thing I'm going to distinguish myself on is there are going to be different theories of how you fight in this election. Everybody's tough. I know there's a lot of great fighters there. But I've learned that when I come to being tough, I never want people to think that in order to be tough, you have to be mean. In order to be strong, you have to be cruel. I want to campaign like I want to govern, which is not just saying we're gonna beat the Republican nominee. Yeah, maybe I'm running to join others and making sure we do that. That's important. But the larger call, which you're going to hear me talking about, is not just how we beat Republicans, but how we unite all Americans in the cause of our country. And so my message will be all about a revival of civic grace, trying to create that beloved community so that we can unite as a nation again and deal with the persistent injustices and lack of fairness in our country.
Okay, so I got a text during our I was listening closely, but I did get a text that said that I am the last question before we go to a couple questions from the crowd. Okay. And I go on Twitter every now and then.
Yes.
And no, it's not good. And you know, no. And you know what Twitter tells me? Twitter tells me positive's not going to win this time.
Yes.
Can you tell us why it will?
Look, I hear this all the time. You know, again, like I said before, people want to fight fire with fire. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. The people we respect in our history that we often laud as some of our greatest heroes are people who are tough, who are strong, who took on bullies, who took on folks that were mean and bigoted. And they took them on not by emulating what they were against, but by demonstrating what they were for. And my greatest heroes, John Lewis, who I mentioned already, he didn't bring out some fire hoses and some dogs to take on the opposition that he had. If you fought them like that, that was exactly what people wanted. What he did is he stood up with a more courageous strength, a defiant love, and a determination, not just to speak to his opponents, but to call the conscience, to act in a way that you awaken the moral imagination of other people. We have sort of lost that. I respect rugged individualism. I respect self-reliance, but rugged individualism didn't get us to the moon. Rugged individualism didn't map the human genome. Rugged individualism didn't happen here in Iowa when people used to meet in barn houses to plan the greatest infrastructure project this country's ever seen, the Underground Railroad. We have always been a great nation when we found ways to come together despite our differences, not by demeaning or degrading people, but by lifting people up. This election is going to test our strength. Do we have the strength to hold to our morals, to hold to our values, and to hold to our ideals? Or are we going to get down into the gutter and try to out-muddy and dirty our opposition? If we do that, I don't know if we win the election or not, but I know the whole country's just going to get dirtier. And so I let people say that they think I'm weak. Please, if you think I'm weak, go online tonight and Netflix or online and watch a movie called Street Fight. Now, some of you have seen this movie. Let me mean what I mean. When my first race for mayor, I ran against the entire machine politics. You'll see a video that is there's violence, there's thuggery, there's meanness. In fact, it was such a powerful movie that it was nominated for an Oscar and then lost in the Oscars to a movie called March of the Dagnab Penguins. They're not cute. They're just not. But a lot of that movie people liked because it was about someone fighting against all the forces, but doing it in a way that you don't lose your dignity. And in fact, even if you lose, and I lost that election, and that's a piece of advice, if you run for office and you're gonna have a spectacular failure, have a documentary team there to capture it. I did lose that election. Sometimes you lose elections. I think we found that out painfully recently. But the way I conducted myself, I went right back to work. And the next election, I set a record in our city for the biggest lopsided victory we ever had. And the way I conducted myself in that election set up for the bigger victory. I want the bigger victory for America. I want us to reclaim our grace and our dignity and our life. So, I'm gonna go 3 questions. We're gonna go 1, we're gonna go 2, and then we're gonna go over here, 3, okay? So, did you see my numbers? Nope. 1, the one woman here. 2, the gentleman sitting here with some very senatorial looking patch. And then the young lady here. What does that say, Simpson? Simpson College is the last question. All right, we got 3 questions.
Okay, I get to go first, right? My voice sounds kind of like yours.
What's your name? What's your name?
Tony, sorry.
Oh, Tony, all right.
Yeah. So my question is something that you've talked a lot about in different arenas, and that's voter suppression.
Yes.
One of the biggest ways that voter suppression happens, in my opinion, is the Electoral College.
Yes.
What can we do about that so that the majority of votes are counted, not the Electoral College votes?
So voter suppression is happening in so many ways. Hello, Iowa. It's felony disenfranchisement. Hello, Iowa. We need to change that here, that if you pay your debt to society, come on out, you should be able to vote. I don't know if you can tell me anything about this, but it happens sometimes when you draw legislative maps. And I'm very worried about that here in this state and what might happen with this legislature and this governor. So there's a lot of things that we need to be doing. I think there's corruption and voter suppression when so much money pours into politics. People don't see it as a voter suppression, but it is. When you allow corporations and lobbyists and other big forces. That's why my election, I'm not taking corporate dollars. I'm not taking lobbyist dollars. I'm not taking pharma exec dollars and all of that stuff. But changing the Electoral College is going to be very, very difficult. It means changing the Constitution, which is very, very difficult. But look, we can do difficult things. But it starts by, ending voter suppression has to start by getting more people to vote. and off the sidelines. I love what was said on this panel. The best thing we've seen, the most hopeful thing we've seen in some ways, is how much activism there is. If this is an issue for you, talk to it. Ask presidential candidates, activate people. Because if we can move the Senate to get 60 votes, you might actually have a chance of getting this done and through Congress and out to the states. But then again, the road is a very long road. It's like that depression I had when I was a little kid and I watched Schoolhouse Rock. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's just a bill. And it's so hard. But we have made in our nation a regular occurrence of achieving hard and impossible things. So don't give up on that, okay? What's the patch? What's the patch?
It's just a souvenir sweatshirt from Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay. Hey.
It's
all right. Is that the presidential seal, man?
Yeah.
It is the presidential seal.
I'll give it to you once you win. Anyway, I'm Dr.
Silence me.
I'm Dr. Alan Coslow, and I'm a retired surgeon here in town. And actually, my cousin Jody Luciani, now Ryan, said to say hello to you.
Oh my gosh. You've got good family.
Yeah. And I worked in Newark for 3 years.
I saw the aura around
I know.
you.
It just, as a physician, I'm interested in Medicare for all.
Yes.
And my question is, right now, under the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, all companies with more than 100 employees are required to pay for the medical insurance. Why would not that not continue if we had Medicare for all?
Okay, so first of all, I'm glad you recognize that the medical system as it is now, it's broken. We have the most expensive healthcare in the country, and we get the worst results, and people are still being left out.
Definitely.
Definitely. And so this is a system that's broken and it's costing us, closing in on 20% of our GDP. And by the way, our system, and you're a doctor, and I hope I can get a hallelujah amen on this, is we have a system also that's kind of designed to treat problems on the back end. It doesn't do enough on intervention. It doesn't do enough on early detection. It doesn't do enough on wellness. It's kind of stuck in treating hellness. And do I get a hallelujah amen?
Hallelujah amen.
Okay. So I have very strong feelings on this, and to your question is, I believe we should have Medicare for all. And I believe that is a goal that we should shoot at, but in the same way the last question, it's going to be hard unless we can start picking up more seats to get there. And I think if I understand your question correctly, you were asking when it comes to businesses picking up
their fair share. Because if you had Medicare for all that was government completely paid out of taxes, they would get a windfall.
And so, by the way, because people could, and this is what he's saying, if people could buy into Medicare for all, it would create healthier pools for businesses and drive down the costs. This is an intermediate step. Let me give you another example. Just by taking down the Medicare eligibility to 55 years old, or bring it to 50, because I'm 49, I kind of like that. That alone, taking older people out of the pool for businesses and others, it lowers the cost. So I'm with you on what pragmatic steps can we take to get to the goal we all agree on. But this is where I want to challenge you. When you and I have run stuff. I had to run a city. And the one cost I couldn't control, I was good at setting up measures and creating more accountability, more transparency in my departments, lowering costs. But the one cost I couldn't control, it was my healthcare costs.
Health insurance.
My health insurance was going up double-digit percentages every single year. Now, if we have an American business that say it's a small manufacturer and it's sending stuff over to compete globally, they sell their goods internationally. And they're competing against some firms. Let's say that one's in Europe, one's in Southeast Asia. Those firms don't have to pay healthcare costs.
Right.
Because their countries have healthcare. Their firms have a competitive advantage that our firms do not. We are hurting businesses in this country by having them to do the same thing I did by raising those costs. So where I agree with you is that I'm not sure, and I'm going to be one of those folks. I'm not going to just stand up here and make wild statements of things we do. I'm going to tell you the truth. We have to take back a lot of Senate seats in this next election if we can lay the groundwork for where we need to be, which is Medicare for all. But if we need to do an intermediate step, which you're talking about, should be something we can get done despite how many Senate seats we win to overcome Mitch McConnell's blocks. We need to have a system where everybody in this country is determined to get down that long road towards what? You cannot have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without health care. To what? You cannot have liberty and justice for all without health care. To what? You can't, this is controversial, you can't have great public education without health care. Why? Why? Because children in this country are born. We say all men and women are created equal. Well, that right now is aspirational. It's not true. Why? Well, we're the richest nation on the planet Earth, but amongst our industrial peers, we have the highest infant mortality rates. We have the highest maternal mortality rates. And for black women, it's twice what white women it is for. That's insane. That brain, you know this, is starting to develop in its younger years. And it's in the womb, in those early years, if you don't get adequate health care, there's some teachers in here, I need some more hallelujahs, amens. There's some teachers in here that understand that even if you're a kindergarten teacher, there are kids that are coming to you already behind. Because we in this country do not provide adequate health care. We don't provide adequate environmental justice. Those children that are having lead in their water, who have elevated blood lead levels, they're having permanent brain damage be done. So we need to start seeing that these are all interrelated problems. And if we're really going to be about justice, every single Congress, we should work to increase access to Medicare. We should work to do more on environmental justice. We should work to expanding healthcare to more women, improving Medicaid, access so women can stay in the hospital longer, and so we can drive down these rates. Don't tell me we can't do this. It's not a matter of can we, it's a matter of collective will.
Amen.
All right. All these amens and hallelujahs. If you like what hallelujah, brother. If you like what you're hearing, let's pass the collection plate. Go to CoryBooker.com. Go to CoryBooker.com, put $1 in the collection plate. All right, what is your name?
My name is Jalen Seabrooks, and I am a sophomore at Simpson College, like I said.
And what are you studying?
I'm studying political science. I'll throw you a softball.
That was my major. Before you throw me a softball question, this is what we call a reversal. I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, I'm ready.
You see this panel, which is gender imbalanced as it should be. And you see these phenomenal women. Some of them were afraid the first time they ran, as was I. You see how they were trailblazers, how people told them they couldn't do it, they should wait their turn. My question to you to flip the script is, will you one day maybe think about running for office?
I will one day, yes.
All right.
So my question to you is, in Iowa, we care a lot about our colleges. We have a lot of colleges, private and public, which means we have a lot of young people in that 18 to 21 age group. And we see a lot of presidential candidates. And it feels like presidential candidates come to Iowa, they do some photo ops on campuses, and then they forget about students and they forget about that age block until the next election. So I want to know, if we are so lucky to have you as our president, what are you going to do about issues that really matter to people my age, whether that's the incredible problem we have with student loans right now, or the fact that there isn't health care that applies to people in my age group, and that I know people with, like you were talking about, diabetes and different things who haven't reached that point where we get a job and we get health care, and my friends are being hurt by that.
Okay, so this is my commitment to you, and the way I'm going to campaign is the way I'm going to govern. And you can take my last 24 hours. I met at on my road, I met with a group of college students. I've met yesterday, I was in a bar yesterday.
I saw that on Twitter.
You saw that on Twitter. And I think I stayed there past midnight, going from table to table with college students, talking about their issues. Because I know one thing, that you all are, and you may be I don't know if you're the tail end of millennials. Are you Generation Z or millennial?
I think I'm Generation Z technically, by like 1 year.
Well, the biggest generation by 1 year, okay. Well, your age bracket is literally the largest population bubble in the country. You all will determine where this country goes. And I hate to say it right now, you're determining it not by your participation, but by your lack of participation. And this gets to this beloved community that I'm so interested in creating. Because if you poll millennials, Republican and Democrat, they actually agree on a lot of things that the older generations don't agree on. And it's not just legalizing marijuana, which you agree on, but it is climate change and the urgency to do something about it. You all believe it like that. You all believe on both sides that money is corrupting politics and we need to end Citizens United. On both sides of the aisle, you believe the cost of college is going up too much. Even on non-sexy issues that nobody puts on their Tinder profile, like infrastructure. You all know that you're going to be inheriting over $1 trillion infrastructure deficit. And so the powerful thing about millennials is that you have the power, and Generation Z, in this next election to transform politics as we know it. It's just a matter of voting. You all don't have to occupy anything. You just got to vote. And that's the power that you all have in your hands. And so I recognize that power. I will be on college campuses, not just doing photo ops. I will sit down. And if I can't find millennials on college campuses, which you can on a Friday night, as I found out last night, you got to go to the bars. So when I'm in Iowa, I will be chasing down high school students, because a lot of 18-year-olds will be able to vote. And I will be chasing down college students, but I'm not going to stop there. Why? Because we've got to stop telling the college lie here, folks. Only about 35% of Americans have a college degree. We need to start having a conversation about all Americans. I was sitting down once in a Democratic progressive panel, and somebody was up there talking about free college, free college, free college. I'm the first person to tell you that what we're doing to our kids is morally objectionable. Why? Because we are sustaining a tax system that gives advantages, something called carried interest, to the richest of the rich. And then our government, most people don't know this, is making a profit off of the student loan program. We make billions of dollars in profit off of the backs of our students. Talk about not having a budget that reflects your values. And so the fact that you can't refinance your loans is objectionable. The fact that community colleges aren't free all across America, to me, is unacceptable. We should have that as our goal. The fact that we aren't finding ways to make sure that kids aren't graduating with crushing debt so that they can invest in homes, that's hurting our economy. And so those are all things I will have detailed policy statements on. But I want to challenge everybody in this room to understand that there is dignity in all work and career professionals. And if you... As much as I love poli-sci majors, I've got a degree in political science, sociology, and history. My father, again, I told you how he teases me all the time. One of the things I had to fight with him, he said, well, the only thing you're qualified to do, Cory, is be a United States Senator with those degrees. That the dignity of work, of home health care aides, the dignity of work of medical professionals, the dignity of work of advanced manufacturing. There's training that we need to be doing in this country that people often have to pay for themselves that leads to work. Why don't we have a nation that has bold apprenticeship programs where people can learn and earn, that elevates the dignity of work and pathways to career professionals? Because we got to understand the warning. 25 to 40% of the jobs that are there now will not be there this century. They're disappearing, folks. And jobs are going to take more and more specialized training. Not the general college degree, but specialized training. We have got to be a country that gets ahead of where everybody else is going. Switzerland, Germany. Most of their kids now are going to apprenticeship programs. They've got such good apprenticeship programs, if you have a mid-career change, you might lose that job. But you can go into an apprenticeship program, make money, and earn new skill sets and go to work. Why aren't we like that in America? As opposed to a 55-year-old factory worker, when their factory job disappears, they go into fear and concern because they don't feel hope. And that's the word I want to end on. Thank you for that question. I want to end on that word because, hold on, I'm going to get criticized, so let me get ahead of it. They're going to say, oh, gosh, more candidates talking about love and hope. Oh, my God, how are you going to beat Donald Trump with that? I want to tell you that I'm even known to hug some folk, maybe a little bit of a hugger. And I had this year or so of watching two hugs. One, a guy from New Jersey, you all never heard of him or saw him in Iowa, named Chris Christie. He sounds familiar. You know, they ran ads against him in New Hampshire during his primary. He was actually behind Trump, above Bush and Rubio, so they ran ads against him. And you know what they criticized him for? Hugging Barack Obama. No, I'm not exaggerating this. That was the whole ad, is that he hugged another human being. And by the way, we in New Jersey know exactly that hug. It was a big hug. The Air Force One flew in after Hurricane Sandy. Barack Obama descended the stairs. Our whole country, our whole state was in grief and pain. And the two men hugged. And as a hugger, it really wasn't that great of a hug. It was one of those awkward hugs, you know, with the male and stew. You don't know what to do with your other hand and all that kind of stuff. Let me give you another hug. I'm on the Senate floor. And John McCain comes to the Senate floor. Now, it was before the healthcare decision when he put his hands down. Tension was high. I was angry. But John McCain just came to the floor after getting a cancer diagnosis that turned out to be a terminal cancer diagnosis. And I crossed the Senate floor in front of the C-SPAN cameras, so 14 Americans, wait, I'm sorry, my mom, 15 Americans saw me. And I hugged John McCain. And if you get a Booker Bear hug, you know, I grabbed this guy until I realized that he was a little weak from his body was a little weak, and I didn't go too hard on him, but he smiled at me. It was a moment. And I'm telling you this, no, you can clap. I get home at night, as you said about Twitter. I go on the internet, look at Twitter, and I'm getting savaged by progressives. How could you hug that man? They were calling them baby killers and all of these things. Where have we come in America where we've gotten to the point where human contact, we're hugging somebody, shaking their hands, looking them in the eye, being willing to meet with them, has become some kind of betrayal of a tribe when there's only one group in America, and that's Americans. And so I'm sorry. I think this is a problem we've got to in our country. That even dialogue now that's civil and respectful is frowned upon. Even with two people as different as Chris Christie and me who come together to try to find some common ground, and it's criticized. That you could literally go out and have your best fundraising quarter by heckling. Look, I miss Obama, and I miss her husband too. But how shameful it was that a South Carolina congressman heckles the president during the State of the Union address and then has his best fundraising quarter after that. Because people want to reward that, oh, you gave it to them. And so what I want to see is what I've seen that is hope. Because it's not a weak word. This is hope. Hope is when I saw the inaugural address of a new president. And I was hoping maybe malice towards none, charity towards all, but there was a whole lot of malice and very little charity. And I'm sitting there just getting a headache thinking to myself, okay, they got the White House, the Senate, and oh my gosh, healthcare, counting votes. I was going to, by the time I went to bed that night after the inauguration, I curled up into a ball with a headache on my bed in my apartment in Washington, D.C. And guess what happened? The next morning, people of hope, millions of them from coast to coast, they came out and said, Cory, this is not a time to curl up, to shut up, to give up. It is the time to get up, to speak up, to rise up. There are women in the Women's March all around saying, we are going to answer this darkness, not by sitting back and complaining, but by getting up and working. Not by agonizing, but by organizing. Let me give you my last example. It was a Muslim ban. I was outraged that my nation that wrote into its founding documents freedom of religion would put a religious test on people coming. I was outraged. I ran to Dulles Airport with a federal court order to make sure the detained Muslim families can get access to lawyers. But then I get stopped in my tracks because in that concourse in Dulles Airport, there were hundreds and hundreds of people, and they were singing and chanting patriotic songs. And then when Muslim families, not even citizens of the United States, like Abraham welcoming strangers in the desert, they started cheering. Guys with yarmulkes and tzitzis on were cheering Muslim families coming into our country. That's what America looks like. It is not demeaning, it is not degrading, it is not dividing, it is lifting people up. I went back to the Senate floor and I told Joe Donnelly, I'm like, Joe, this is what he goes, Cory, the same thing happened to me at Indianapolis Airport. I went there and all these people were there and people coming off planes, we were hugging each other except there was no international flights. Just a bunch of people hugging folks coming in from Detroit. Saying, we're Americans, this is not who we are. So this is our moment right now. How will we respond to darkness? How will we respond to the pain of our brothers and sisters, the worry, the fear? How will we respond? That is in the balance in this election. That is the crossroads we're on. There's a lot of candidates running, and I want to win just as bad as every single one of them. I want to see that man out of the White House. I want to see dignity returned. But I was called to dream bigger than that. Our ancestors are calling us to dream bigger than that. Not just an electoral victory, as important as that is, we are called to dream bigger than that. For me, I'm going to put before every voter in Iowa that we got to have a bigger dream, greater expectations. That we have to use this moment in American history, especially as Democrats, not to show how much we can hate Republicans or beat up on Republicans. This is the test to see how much we can unite Americans. Whether it's a farm worker or a factory worker, whether it's a domestic or a home health aide, this is the time to say we've got common pain in this country. It's time, America, that we unite around a common purpose. And if you believe like I do that we can solve the American problems, if you believe like I do that we can address fear and hurt and pain, if you believe like I do that we can do those things by coming together, if you believe like I do, that any study of American history says there's nothing we can't do, then please join me on this campaign. Sign up at CoryBooker.com and let's work together to help this nation rise again. Thank you.
Senator Booker.
Hey, thank you.
Can I get an autograph, Senator?
Right.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Thank you very much.
You're so kind. Thank you.
Two. One more. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being so nice in person. Thank you so much. Seriously. Thank you.
to adoption. Kids all one here. That have chronic medical needs. I would love to discuss that. And honestly, everything that they just told us so grateful. Thank you so much. Good luck to you. It's lovely to meet you. And please reach out anytime.
We did this once before. You're part of my family.
Or am I just
It's one of those Facebook things that they just gather.
You're right, Liz. His face is, there we go. There we go. Are you going to get the book? Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Let me see this real quick.
No, we have to get the book. We're a family.
Thank you.
All right.
Got a photo book with him in there. I've got a couple coworkers. Here we go.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, you're rolling. Oh, man. You in?
Tom, are you in?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Booker.
Thank you very, very much.
You're a pleasure. Sorry. Bienvenida.
Just gracias.
Thank you. Someone told me very soon to notice.
You get it? Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Very much. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. My phone died, so.
Oh, no.
Hey, Cory, you need a hat? Hey, thanks for visiting. Come back soon.
So I guess I need to step up on stage real quick. Janet Peterson. I mean, right over there.
Senator, there were great comments about climate change in Mason City yesterday. Disappointed we didn't hear anything about it today.
I'm sorry. I wish I would have asked them.
Well, we didn't have a chance. Are you going to fight as hard as you said you were yesterday when they come after you and say that it's going to put out, we're going to, no more cows, no more airplanes? I mean, that's the stuff happening right now.
Yes, so the answer is yes.
Okay, we need to talk more about that.
Good to go.
We will. I will be back.
Great. Thank you.
Right back.
Oh, wait.
Thank you so much.
It's all pulled up for you.
Oh, yeah, we got it. Thanks, I appreciate it. We got to limit people on the stage. So, yeah.
Thank you. We've met before. Oh, you have? Okay. But it was very brief. She teaches African refugees coding.
We didn't talk a lot about the coding stuff, yeah.
She does amazing things.
Let's talk again when I come out here, please.
We have to. We're going to stay in touch through Janet. We want to volunteer, and we have a great group of people who want to volunteer, but we don't know how to. Thank you so much. Yes. Here, I'll take one. Take a selfie.
Keep taking pictures with mine.
Thank you for coming, Senator.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you so much for coming. I've been a fan of you for so long.
I'm from New Jersey, and I need a selfie. There we go. And this is my husband.
He's been trying to get you, but it's really hard.
Thank you so much.
We'll try to get him through.
And we have a huge...
I remember you were here in 2010, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I remember you were here in 2010. right. Thank you so much.
That's the youngest one. You got the youngest one.
You won? Oh, no, you didn't. You did. I just made that nice bookers for the ride.
God bless you, man.
Did you guys fill out the clipboards up front? Thank you so much.
Hey, Cory, I want to give you this hat.
Oh, look at this.
I'm worried about your head.
Come on.
I don't need any pictures. I don't need a picture. I just want to shake your hand and give you that hat.
Thank you.
I'm from New Jersey.
I see that.
New Jersey. Why'd you go to Stanford?
I know.
It's been a real struggle for him to get up here, so I just want to make sure that he got to thank you.
I'm a Vietnam vet.
I got some information.
So much meds.
Oh, perfect.
And we need that HR 299 bill.
So we're going to get the Senate version done. And we should talk about how to make sure we help you with the Senate as well.
Yeah. I'm taking over 20 pills a day.
So I'm not familiar with that specific bill, but I want to find out which one it is.
It's the blue water, Agent Orange. I'm a Vietnam vet. I went over when I was 17, and now our government is disavowing us.
So I keep that in. That's right. Hey, can we have somebody take his information so we can talk?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, you're fine.
Thank you. Now here, please.
Sir, can I get your name and phone number? Robert Beeman.
Oh, you got it? Uh-oh, did you change it to video? My bad. You're good with that stuff. Here we go, Casey. Thank you.
Get you in the shadow.
Oh, yeah, where do we turn? Oh, there we go. Can I get one up here, please?
It's 515-480.
You did a great job. I worked on Bernie's hand, so I would have worked.
Yeah.
I'm like,
And you were talking about the blue water. It's HR 299.
Are we there?
I'm taking so many meds.
I'm not even there.
299. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We'll be following up.
I know you
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. You're welcome, sir.
Are you coming?
Thanks for coming out. I know it's hard. No, sir, if you want it, I can make a
Thank you.
Make some room for this man, please. Thank you.
He's got long arms. He's got this. I just did it quick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. What's your name?
We'll try to get him around. It's really tough to get him over. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Sorry for my voice.
great.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. I don't know any smartphones, so can I have a Cory hug?
Yes. Oh my God. Oh, thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Oh, my son.
A picture?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Booker.
Thank you very much. Overflows it over there.
You broke an older one.
That's the best comment I've had all day.
We get caught in bid and
I have another photo with her too.
Hold on, I got it.
Okay. Now I'm going to have to sign in. Oh, no, okay. Thank you. It's nice meeting you too. Oh yeah, definitely. And this cutie here needs one so bad. Can you hop up in these arms? There we go. Okay, got her. And here's Mom and Grandma. Are you headed back to printing anytime soon?
I'm not this trip, but I will. I will. All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You're welcome.
Senator Booker, can I quickly thank you?
Good to see you.
Thank you for your work during the Kavanaugh hearing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm your friend.
Two more. Two more.
Use that length. Where's it coming from? Anytime I'm on the treadmill, it's like I'm on.
Thank you so much. Thank you. How nerdy you are.
Oh, thank you.
I really like it.
Thank you so much.
We love your message. Thank you so much. Working together.
Yes.
Senator Booker, as part of
the Me Too movement and as a survivor of rape, I want to thank you personally for your behavior during the Kavanaugh hearings and your willingness to stand up for all women and for your willingness to say, you know how I feel, and I'm going to walk out for everybody to follow you. I will never forget, I've been following you for years and years and years. That was hard to watch, but what you did that day was so inspiring, and you just, thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much, and good luck to you. We are behind you. I know you have to run. This would be my son's first election, that he will get to vote for you in the next generation.
You too. Come on, guys.
The next generation. Thank you very much.
We gotta head downstairs for the overflow room. Folks, we gotta head downstairs real quick. We promised the overflow room.
Nobody down there.
There you go.
Senator Booker.
So good. Just one more, sir. Senator Booker.
Thank you, thank you. Cory,
Hi.
That seems like. Thank you. Could you also sign? Do you have a page to sign?
Oops. Somebody's whistling. Uh-oh.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We're going to do it together. We're going to send it together. We don't know each other, but we want to get one together. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I will send it to your
I'll fight for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Senator, I ran in this last race. I lost to a good incumbent, but I made a showing for my first time at 42%.
Oh my God, that's great, sir. Good job. Thank you.
Senator?
Yes, I got you. I know what I'm doing.
Here we go.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sir?
Right, guys, I gotta get downstairs. I'm so sorry.
That's my meeting.
I don't think we're going to do it.
What's going on downstairs?
There are nearly 100 new members of the House of Representatives this year. Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Mississippi, and Washington are 5 of the states that added 1 new